Well, we begin with brand new polling showing former President Trump pulling ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris. Maybe a sign that her momentum has stalled. New York Times Siena College poll shows Trump leading Harris by 1 point in this super tight race. And the new polls show Trump also remains popular with a 46% approval rating. That's big, better than where he stood in either of his last two presidential campaigns. And this poll is being called one of Trump's most overlooked advantages. Voters see Trump as closer to the center than Harris. And nearly half of all voters say that Harris is too liberal or progressive. That explains all of her flip-flopping. Those policies.
All right, my friends, Jared Dukes at your service. Welcome to all my free-minded friends. Appreciate you being here with me. We are talking about this new poll that just came out. As you can see at the Real Clear Polling website, we now have the first poll showing former President Donald Trump ahead nationally. Now, we've been talking sometime about, frankly, not believing these polls that are being produced. These polls have a lot of irregularities and a lot of things that I believe are just flat out errors. If you remember back in 2016 and 2020, the polls were very much so off and incorrect in relation to former President Donald Trump. Now, let's take a look at this poll right here. 2024 national Trump versus Harris. The poll we're talking about is New York Times Siena poll. And of course, it has a 1 point bump for Donald Trump. It's within the margin of error, but it's worth noting that the margin of error in this particular poll is a lot slimmer than a lot of the other polls that we have been talking about in recent days. Now, the most important thing to remember when you look at this particular poll is this line right here. And what this line shows is what's on your screen. You have to take this with a grain of salt on all these polls. So although Donald Trump is 1 point ahead nationally, it's much more important to look at it from a historical perspective. If you look at the graph on your screen right here, Hillary Clinton back in 2016 was leading Donald Trump by 2.7% on this day back in 2016. Even in 2020, when Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden was ahead 7.5%. And then, of course, Kamala Harris, as of right now, is losing to Donald Trump by 1.4%. Does not look good if you are Kamala Harris. On your screen right now is the state of Wisconsin. The current polling, as of right now, the best polls we have, a CBS News poll, shows Donald Trump losing by 2%. And, of course, these figures keep going back and forth. Now, if you look at a historical perspective with the state of Wisconsin, you will see, and I like the way they lay this out here, so it's easy to see literally with the two different colors. Wisconsin has always generally been a Democratic state, except when Donald Trump carried it in 2016. Now, moving to Michigan, you see that the current polling shows Harris ahead by 1 point. When we go back and look at Michigan from a historical context, you will see that it is another one of these states that has generally voted in recent history as a Democratic stronghold. The exception to that, of course, is back in 2016 when Donald Trump carried the state of Michigan. Oh, have we talked a lot about Pennsylvania, right? Pennsylvania is going to be probably one of the most consequential states in this upcoming presidential election. And as of right now, as you can see on your screen, the polls show 50-50. It is dead even. If you go back and look at the state of Pennsylvania in a historical context, you will see that it has generally voted Democratic in recent history, just like the other blue wall states of Wisconsin and Michigan. Of course, Donald Trump won this state also back in 2016 and lost it in 2020. Current polling in the great state of Arizona show 48-48, another dead even state. We go back and look at Arizona through a historic perspective. It has pretty well always been a Republican stronghold, except for 2020 when Joe Biden barely nicked out a victory in the state of Arizona. Nevada is another state that is dead even, 47-47, as you can see on your screen. We go back and take a look at the state of Nevada. Historically speaking, it generally has been mixed. However, overwhelmingly, I would say it's a Democratic stronghold. In 2004, it was won by the Republican candidate at that particular time. However, it's important to note that Donald Trump did not win the state in 2016 or in 2020. And then, of course, there's the great state of Georgia, another state which is pretty well a dead heat. This particular polling as of right now shows that Donald Trump is ahead by 1 point, 48-49%. And with the state of Georgia, when we look at it through a historical perspective, it is a strong Republican hold. It was Democratic in the 1970s, of course, because of President Jimmy Carter, and Joe Biden did win it back in 2020, but it was a very slim majority. I think it was less than 12,000 votes. And then finally, what polling we are able to pull out of North Carolina shows that North Carolina is another one of these states that's considered a toss-up, but Donald Trump still shows a lead there of 46.7% to 45.9%, which is a summary of all the polls combined. When you look at a historical perspective for North Carolina, you will see that it has been a strong, reliable Republican state, except for 2008 when it did vote for Barack Obama. But Donald Trump did carry this state in 2016 and in 2020. One state that I personally find interesting is the state of Virginia. The polling right now shows that Harris is up about 3%, 49 to 46%. But you got to remember that Virginia has a very popular Republican governor. So Donald Trump, most people are thinking, definitely has a chance with the state of Virginia. And folks, hear this clearly. If Donald Trump wins Virginia, it's all over. The Democrats have no path to victory. When looking at the state of Virginia in a historical context, you can definitely see it is up in the air. It has been Republican for quite some time, and in 2008, it switched Democratic, although the margins are very slim. It is truly what I would consider a battleground state, at least at some times on some levels. We'll see how it plays out this year. Okay, so on your screen is what we consider the battleground states. At least that's what most of the talking heads consider the battleground states. And the battleground states, I guess we can go ahead and put North Carolina on here as a typical battleground state, and we're talking about Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. We're going to go ahead and just play out some scenarios here. I think most people believe that Donald Trump should be able to hold on to North Carolina, Georgia, and in all likelihood, he will win Arizona. So we're going to go ahead and just shade in Arizona. We're going to give Kamala Harris Nevada, even though Donald Trump is polling very well there. In this scenario, you have 262 for the Republicans and 232 for the Democrats. All right, so follow me here. You have to have 270 electoral votes to claim the presidency of the United States. Look, if Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, it's all over. Done. Put a fork in it. It's over with. That's the reason why these battleground states, especially what we call the blue wall in the north, is so important. Now, let's go ahead and let's pretend, just for the sake of playing this out, let's say that Donald Trump does not win Pennsylvania, but he wins Michigan. Boom. Donald Trump is the president of the United States in that scenario also. If he wins Wisconsin by itself, he is the Republican president to be, the president-elect. It's over with. If Donald Trump wins any of the blue wall, the so-called blue wall here in the north, it is all over. Kamala Harris will lose. Donald Trump will be the president. So if you had a choice to be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, you would definitely want to be Donald Trump in this scenario because he has so many more pathways to victory. Now, just for another scenario, let's say that Arizona definitely doesn't go the way I'm expecting it, and it ends up in the Democrats' column. Let's play this out. So let's go ahead and say Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania. We have talked a lot about Pennsylvania, and on your screen, you see the reason why. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States, period. Even if he loses Nevada, even if he loses Arizona. And again, in my scenario, I'm assuming he's going to win Georgia like he's done back in 2016 and North Carolina like he did in 2016 and 2020. It's very likely that he's going to carry both of them states with no problems whatsoever. Pennsylvania's 19 electoral is a large chunk of votes, and it will give him the 270 that he needs. Let's go ahead and back this out, and let's just pretend Donald Trump wins Michigan. Well, Donald Trump's going to need to win Michigan and Pennsylvania, even if he loses Pennsylvania. Let's see what that looks like. In that case, he still has 276, even if he was to lose Pennsylvania. That would give the Democrats 262, the Republicans 276. That's the reason you see these candidates all in this northern so-called blue wall area. Donald Trump simply needs to win the state of Pennsylvania, and he will be the next president of the United States. Again, it depends on which way Arizona goes, because it is definitely on the tipping point. It's definitely a toss-up one way or the other. I personally think what's going to happen is the following. You're going to see Arizona red. You may or may not see red for Nevada. It really does not matter when you get right down to it. Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania in this scenario and Arizona. He's got well more than what he needs above the 270 to be the president. As a matter of fact, in this scenario, Donald Trump could lose Pennsylvania, take Michigan or Wisconsin, and he would still be the president. If he took just Wisconsin alone, that's 272. If Donald Trump was able to simply take Michigan, as long as he has Arizona, he would have 277. And of course, as we've been talking about, Pennsylvania is extremely determinative in this particular election coming up here. So I think the way this is going to look, and this is a worst case scenario in my humble opinion, this is going to be worst case of worst case is what's on your screen right now. You're going to see Donald Trump take Pennsylvania. You'll see Kamala Harris maybe take Wisconsin and or Michigan. It's not going to matter. It's going to be 257 to 281. This election is going to be extremely consequential, my friends. We're all going to have to talk with our neighbors, friends, have some uncomfortable conversations if necessary, but we have to get the word out that it's important that each and every one of us vote. But I want you to know at least the way that I see the election right now, and I want you to know exactly what the new poll shows as far as former President Donald Trump is concerned. Now listen, this is amazing because this is right after the Democratic National Convention. There was effectively no bounce, no bump for Kamala Harris. I would say the sugar high, if you will, for Kamala Harris's campaign is at an end, as it should be. I think that it's been well overrated for quite some time. So let's hope it stays like that, and we'll just have to see how this all plays out. I appreciate each and every one of you joining me today. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to like, subscribe, share this video with any of your indoctrinated friends. I always say, my friends, keep that mind free, never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.